The first red flag wasn't the subject line, seamless transition, mandatory meeting. It was the time, 5:53 a.m., not 5:50, not 6:53. That kind of artificial precision always signals someone who tracks their macros, owns a ring light, and thinks emotional intelligence is a plugin. I walked into room B201 at Halverson Tech like a woman who had already made peace with the fallout. My hair was still damp from the shower. Blazer over a Bowie tee, coffee in one hand, fire in the other. My boss, Nathan Greer, was already seated, flanked by two HR reps with faces that said, "We practiced this in a mirror." He smiled at me like I was a monthly report he was relieved to archive. "Sloan," he began, voice calm, practiced. "You've been instrumental, but as we modernize some roles and people will naturally sunset." Then HR Beth read her laminated sympathy script. "This is a role-based transition not related to performance." Nathan didn't hesitate. "The software replaced you." 4 words, not "thank you," not "let's transition your expertise." Just a verdict. I didn't react. Just pressed my thumb into the coffee lid until it cracked. Beth handed me the exit packet like it was a gift card, and not the burial notice of a woman whose code had quietly powered the company's core systems for a decade. I flipped through. Page 4. Termination date, May 30th. My contract renewed June 1st. 2 days. They'd timed it down to the clause. Any questions Beth asked, scribbling something like termination tone, passive. I met Nathan's eyes, calm, controlled. I wrote the license. He smiled wider, too confident to hear the threat. "Of course. That's why we're flying in your replacement Monday. You'll have a chance to do a handoff before your final day?" Nathan added, as if he were offering me a souvenir mug. "Shouldn't take more than a few hours." I nodded slowly. Every vertebra in my neck protested, straining with the effort it took not to leap across the table and uninstall his oxygen privileges. The meeting ended like a bad breakup. Stiff silences borrowed sympathy, a handshake that felt like touching cold, dry static. I left with a branded folder in one hand and a thunderstorm brewing under my ribs. No tears, no slammed doors, no dramatic exit line. I walked back to my desk, logged in one last time, and made a note. Encrypted offline time-stamped, trigger 9C armed, countdown 46 hours. By the time the office lights flickered into their nightly coma, I had backed up everything that mattered: commit logs, build notes, deployment branches, legacy contingencies. Clause 9C had lived quietly in the architecture license of Stratus Core since version 3.1.2. It looked like legal filler. No one questioned it. Why would they, termination of employment, shall void the deployment license? Auto-renewal clause is nullified upon involuntary separation. Activation keys expire immediately upon role revocation. No grace period, no recovery. Legal had rubber-stamped it 6 years ago. No one listens to the woman who built the floor they're standing on. But they would. The exit interview room was over-air-conditioned to morgue levels, probably to keep any remaining human emotion frozen solid. HR had assigned a junior compliance officer who looked like she practiced empathy between skincare tutorials. She flipped pages with the attention span of someone choosing a Netflix show she'd already watched twice. "Let's review the separation checklist," she chirped like this was a scavenger hunt and not the slow-motion execution of 10 years of my work. Laptop turned in. Access card surrendered. Work phone sealed in a padded envelope. Soul already repossessed by the gods of smug efficiency. "Just a reminder," she said. Tapping a glossy page, "Your NDA remains in effect." I blinked once. Uh-huh, as if they didn't realize I was the architecture. The logs, the schemas, the system they were so eager to transition her away from. I'd named half those damn functions like they were my own kids. "We're all very excited about the transition," chirped the HR lead from the corner, cracking open a citrus-colored energy drink that probably tasted like printer toner. "Our new partners in Hyderabad will take over Stratus Core maintenance next week," she added. "They'll bring a fresh perspective." I smiled, thin and sharp. "They'll need it." "Oh, yes," the compliance officer replied, oblivious to the blade tucked inside my tone. "They're very capable. They've already suggested containerizing the deployment layers to streamline AWS rollout. I tilted my head slightly. Interesting strategy. I hope they like kernel panics. Silence. Not even a nervous chuckle. Just the cold hum of the AC. At 2:16 p.m., the system flipped. My status officially changed from active to separated. That timestamp would ripple through 6 servers, 4 HR databases, and 1 private Git repo titled, "Good Luck, Nate Greer. JSON, my little parting gift." I leaned back and pulled the severance packet from my bag. Paragraph 14.3 buried beneath legal sludge about post-employment IP and royalty waivers. They thought I'd sign away 10 years of blood and brilliance for a check. I slid it across the table. "I'm declining the severance," I said. The compliance officer blinked like I'd spoken in Morse. "I'm sorry, unacceptable clause amendments. But you'll lose the payout." HR said, her brows practically touching her hairline. "It's generous. I'll live." Legal shrugged with the grace of a bored yoga instructor. "That's your prerogative." No speech, no dramatic exit line, just the soft rustle of my blouse and the satisfying click of the door behind me. Back at my apartment, I powered up my personal rig, a machine I'd hand-built like an altar. I opened the secure license manager I'd written years ago. No one at Halverson even knew it existed. I uploaded my termination notice, entered my internal auth key, still active for another 17 minutes, scrolled to the field, Stratus Core license, auto-renew override. Typed one word nullify, hit save. Registry updated, license expired pending verification. Rollback scheduled, T+9H45M. I pushed my chair back across to the kitchen and poured 2 fingers of whiskey over 3 ice cubes. Somewhere in the Halverson building, Nathan Greer was probably ordering a celebratory protein smoothie, talking to some VP about how disruption is hard but necessary. I took a sip. Let's see how he likes my version of disruption. By 9:00 a.m., I was back at Halverson, armed with a guest lanyard and the world's most diplomatic face. They'd asked me to train the new dev team before my exit. Knowledge transfer, they called it. As if 10 years of late-night system patching and duct tape brilliance could be compressed into a 30-minute slideshow between catered lunch and bored smirks. I sat at the head of the table. A dying projector buzzed beside me. 5 engineers, same sweatshirts, different haircuts, stared blankly at their screens like kindergartners mid-Zoom. The one closest, some cocky little MIT cosplay named Tyler, wore noise-canceling headphones during the session. "Slide 6. I said, clicking the remote. "This is the traffic arbitration layer. It's undocumented, so listen close. If you deploy without adjusting mutex weights in the node scheduler, it deadlocks. Every time." Tyler raised a hand, eyes still on his screen. "We're planning to rebuild it anyway. AWS containers, microservices, you know." I smiled slowly. Good luck replicating multi-node failover from scratch. Especially when one node's an illusion built to spoof legacy SFTP handshakes. One of them blinked. "Wait. What protective spoofing?" I said. "Invented it during the 2017 logistics outage. You were probably still Googling, what's a semaphore?" Silence. Awkward typing. One guy scribbled spoofing like it was a new Marvel villain. They weren't listening. Not really. They thought Stack Overflow could substitute for context. Thought architecture came in Docker containers and LinkedIn threads. By noon, the session had dissolved into vibe-based learning. Tyler was watching YouTube. Another guy cracked a Firebase joke. "I hope your uptime SLA enjoys," that I muttered. By 1 o'clock, I was back at my desk for the last time. Most of my stuff was packed. Still I sat. Logged in Access, still active, and opened the master commit log of Stratus Core. 10 years. Over 14,000 commits. My fingerprints were everywhere. Rollback routines, fail-safes, even the ridiculous little Easter egg in the admin dashboard that made a cat gif loop on April Fools. I selected the final branch, Stratus Core Arc Prod 9.4.2. Ran a clean export. Stripped every trace of Halverson branding. Replaced license headers with Nightingale Systems LLC. My LLC registered in Delaware. Dormant, but waiting. For 5 years, it waited. I compressed the archive, encrypted it twice, and sent it to a cold storage dead drop. Subject line, legacy load. No one would ever see it, except me. Or maybe someday the next company's smart enough to pay me what I was worth. The moment hung there still, an electric like air just before a storm tears loose. I opened the internal badge admin console, typed in my access code, navigated to the credential control panel. Deactivate user ID spare it. My finger hovered, then clicked. Access deleted. No alarms, no panic. Just a clean cut, the digital umbilical cord, severed from the beast I'd kept running with caffeine code and 4 too many bottles of Aleve. As I walked down the hall, I passed Nathan Greer. He was sipping something green and smug. Heading out, he asked like I was ducking out of a conference call. I didn't stop walking. "I'd wish you luck," I said, "but I think you'll need something stronger." I left my lanyard on the front desk like a sheriff's badge at the end of a Western and stepped through the glass doors one final time. Outside, the sun was bright enough to blind. I didn't squint. I had work to do and a countdown to honor. The thing about revenge, it doesn't strike from nowhere. It grows quiet, patient like rust under chrome. I didn't start out as the woman who could kill a company with a keystroke. I was the girl fixing broken Keyron jobs while janitors vacuumed around my sleeping bag. 10 years ago, Stratuscore was duct tape and prayer, Halverson. Just another mid-tier logistics firm, playing dress-up in tech's hand-me-downs. I made it run. Not just functional resilient, cockroach in nuclear winter resilient, and they never gave me a raise. They gave me a mug once. Halverson Crew, we power the future. The handle cracked a week later. I glued it. Drank from it anyway, and stayed. Nights turned into weekends. Weekends into years. I skipped birthdays, skipped funerals, skipped meals. Sometimes I'd wake in the middle of the night, heart hammering, whispering error codes into my pillow. Slack pings bled into dreams. Stratuscore wasn't just software. It was marrow. My code had comments written like confessions. "Please don't break during rollout." "Spare it. Fix this later." Only you'll remember how then came 2019. A strategic realignment, they called it. Translation: 12% of the team axed. The guy who built the original scheduler, gone without warning. 2 weeks later, the entire deployment pipeline collapsed. Nobody knew where the staging certs lived. Nobody had asked. I stayed late, wrote a patch in Bash, drank warm Coke Zero, and then I wrote Clause 9C, tucked inside the license metadata. Not hidden, just ignored. One line in a sea of boilerplate. If original creator is involuntarily terminated, license auto-renewal shall be void. Instances expire on next heartbeat. Check post-separation. Legal skimmed it. Approved it. Engineering never read beyond section titles. Marketing thought license key was a snack code. So it lived there undisturbed, waiting. Now I'm on my couch blanket on my lap. Frasier muted on the TV. I scroll LinkedIn. There he is. Nathan Greer grinning from a post titled, "Tomorrow's Here Halverson. Launches Automation 2.0. I tap it. Buzzwords flood the screen: streamline, synergy, innovation. Goodbye legacy systems. Hello future. It's not just a relaunch. It's a funeral for my life's work. There's a stock photo of a fake diverse engineering team smiling in front of a whiteboard scrawled with nonsense. One corner has a sketch that might actually be a cat. My throat tightens. They didn't just erase me. They threw a parade over the ashes. I click bookmark. Not because I care what they said, but because soon those words will rot like shrimp in summer heat. I open my laptop. Log into the registry dashboard. Rollback scheduled. Ping interval 6 hours. It's already ticking, counting down to silence. I exhaled. Not bitter. Not broken. Just sharper now. I'd been soft clay once, molded by loyalty, caffeine, and foolish dreams of recognition. But that phase was over. Now, I was forged steel. And Halverson was about to find out what happens when you try to automate the woman who wrote the manual on control. The first morning of my post-Halverson life didn't start with a cringy LinkedIn post or a hashtagged onward and upward. I woke at 6:30 a.m., not from an alarm, but from muscle memory. The apartment was still. No Slack pings, no 3 a.m. API meltdowns. Just the low purr of my personal rig humming in the corner like a wolf sleeping under the table. I poured a mug of overpriced herbal tea, the kind I used to forget existed during release week, and settled into the stillness. Not bored, primed, because the difference between rage and revenge is timing. I opened my personal dashboard, something I'd built years ago on a forgotten subdomain routed through 3 layers of proxies. Looked like a wellness tracker if you didn't know better. The interface was clean. 1 panel, 1 countdown. Next license check, 12:01 a.m., T18H03M. A bash script sat coiled like a viper inside Halverson's ancient GitHub enterprise repo, buried in a commit labeled infra cleanup, nested in a dependency chain no one ever reviewed. It pinged the Stratus Core license verification endpoint every 6 hours. Quiet, invisible, no errors, no warnings, just expiration. 1 heartbeat fails, then another. The stack collapses inward, silent and deadly. By the time someone noticed, it would be because everything was broken and no one would know why. I propped my feet on the coffee table and opened Halverson's blog. Nathan's face glowed at the top of their latest PR fluff filtered into oblivion. Gratitude for the past. Excitement for the future. Sloan Barrett's grace and professionalism have been inspiring. Grace. Professionalism. I chuckled into my tea. They really thought I walked out with a thank you card and a yoga mat. My socials dark. No announcements, no movement, because I wasn't talking. I was watching. Every word, every comment, every lie. If you've been holding your breath with Sloan, now's the time to subscribe because the next heartbeat could be the one that brings everything crashing down. Every engineer chirping about AWS rollouts and container stacks. Every recruiter assuming I was on the market. I wasn't unemployed. I was armed. My inbox was already filling up. A startup in Boston wanted a seasoned architect to redefine their infrastructure. A logistics firm in Denver dangled a sign-on bonus with more zeros than cents. I ignored them all. There was one final step. I opened the last function in the script. The kill switch had a fail-safe me. I entered my private key, encrypted through my Ubui token, signed under Nightingale Systems, LLC, and clicked authorize. Now it was done. At 12:01 a.m., Stratus Core would ping its license server like it always had. Except this time, it would receive a quiet but irreversible message. 401, unauthorized. Clause 9C enforced. License void upon creator termination. No sirens. No logs screaming. Just the elegant unraveling of operational control across 32 production nodes. Nathan would sleep peacefully tonight, probably dreaming of his next tech conference panel, titled something like Evolving Past Legacy Talent. I sipped my tea and opened a browser tab. Started looking up beachfront rentals in Portugal, because I had the rarest luxury of all time. The kind of time you earn when you've already planted the bomb and walked away, leaving them alone with the ticking. At 12:01 a.m., the heartbeat ping went out. Routine. Quiet. Buried so deep inside the Stratus Core framework, it might as well have been a heartbeat. But this time, no handshake. Just a final kiss. 401 unauthorized. The system didn't crash. It bled. One microservice failed, then another. Node clusters went silent. Auto-scaling froze. The cache backend, once. As fast as Vegas Fiber locked mid-packet and corrupted 3 queues. At 12:14, the first symptom hit the ops dashboard blank metric tiles. No errors, no logs, just silence. Like staring at the flatline of a sleeping brain. The night shift tech rebooted his terminal. Nothing changed. He messaged Slack. No reply. By 12:42, West Coast warehouses dropped entire orders. At 1:16, East Coast sinks failed. At 2:02, the load balancer choked retried for 30 minutes, then shut down. No alerts. Because I built Stratus Core to be quietly competent, and now it was quietly gone. And now it was quietly dead. At 3:23 a.m., Nathan Greer, CTO disruption evangelist walking TED Talk, was finally yanked out of bed by a string of frantic messages from DevOps. Stratus Core is down. Like, down. He didn't even put on real clothes. Logged in from his iPad, wearing silk pajamas, already brainstorming how to spin this as unexpected cloud migration turbulence in a LinkedIn post. He opened the admin console. Stall. Reload. Red screen. License expired. Renew via primary contract authority. Underneath, owner Nightingale Systems, LLC. His face turned the color of cheap printer paper soaked in bad decisions. He tried rebooting. Flushed caches, fired off bypass flags. Every attempt echoed back the same brutal truth: unauthorized. License bound to original creator. Revoked upon termination. By 4:00 a.m., a national logistics partner rang the CEO on his personal line. Orders weren't routing. APIs were dead. Warehouses printing blank labels. The CEO, groggy and furious, demanded answers. Nathan flipped through licensing clauses, white-knuckled. And then he said the words, "No exec wants to say before sunrise, I think." We triggered a license kill switch. Silence. Then, she what? Back at Halverson, HQ, the devs I'd knowledge transferred to were Googling things like reset Stratus Core password, as if this was WordPress and not a fortress I'd built from scratch. The system was unraveling in slow motion. Not with a bang, but 1,000 precision cuts. Unparsable error logs because I rewrote the framework in 2018. No documentation because no one ever asked. Missed shipments. Frozen nodes. Queues collapsing under their own weight. Someone suggested restoring a backup. Nathan, pale and brittle, whispered, "Backup still check the license." By 6:00 a.m., Slack had morphed into an all-caps war zone. Legal was trying to reach me. It was looking for rollback points that hadn't existed in years. Finance was calculating vendor penalties per hour. And me, I was walking. Just past sunrise. City Park stretched out before me, golden and still. Hoodie up, earbuds in, thermos in hand. Calm as a woman with nowhere to be and everything, finally, exactly as planned. My breath rose in little clouds. Cool, quiet satisfaction. A robin landed beside me on the park bench. I smiled. The sun was up, the system was down, and justice was on autopilot. The emergency board meeting started at 6:37 a.m. Eastern, 30 minutes early, because panic doesn't respect calendars. The Zoom chime echoed like a funeral bell. Executives trickled in, unshaven and undercaffeinated, with that look people get after watching a $1 million pipeline catch fire in real time. Nathan was already on, camera off, voice flickering between denial and collapse. "I believe we're experiencing a licensing issue," he muttered, eyes scanning tabs, like he was trying to defuse a bomb in a foreign language. Possibly triggered by a termination clause in the Stratus Core framework. Silence. The CEO didn't blink. The CFO rubbed his temples. "Licensing? I thought we owned Stratus Core," the COO snapped. "We commissioned it," Nathan said, opening a PDF, "but the core license." "Read the clause." Legal cut in. Her camera was on, eyes red, voice clipped. She held the contract like it might explode. Nathan swallowed. Clause 9C. If the original creator is terminated without cause license, auto-renewal is void. License expires on first failed heartbeat. Ownership reverts to creator under LLC protections. Silence. Tight. Fatal. The CFO squinted. What LLC? Legal pulled the record. Nightingale Systems LLC, filed in Delaware, listed in the Stratus Core source repo. The CEO's voice cracked. "That's Sloan's company." Nathan looked like he was trying to unchoke on glass. We never migrated the source repo. We forked deployment scripts, but we left the license headers intact. Legal finished for him. The board chair raised both hands, like a referee calling time. You're saying the software we run our infrastructure on belongs to someone we just fired. Yes, Nathan admitted, then backpedaled. But we're negotiating. We're reaching out. Legal cut in again. She's not answering. We already tried, Legal said. Her counsel responded with one-line terms enforced as written. Panic spread across the board like a virus. One director killed his camera. Another started typing furiously, probably spinning up a back channel to a crisis PR firm. The CFO exhaled through gritted teeth. We've got shipments rotting in Chicago and a $20 million vendor penalty clause activating at noon. She owns the license. How is that even possible? Because none of us read past the footnotes, Legal snapped. She buried it like a nuclear failsafe, and we handed her the launch codes. The CEO finally unmuted. His voice was thread-thin. Get her on the line. Nathan didn't look up. I don't think she's taking our calls? Then offer her something. The CEO barked. I don't care what it costs, just fix it. Legal nodded once. She'll fix it, but not for our price. Across town, I stood barefoot on my balcony, sipping coffee. The air smelled like jasmine and consequences. My phone buzzed. First a call, then a text, Sloan, please. Let's talk. We're ready to make a deal. I smiled. Let them sweat. I wasn't done yet. No makeup, no blazer. Just a faded hoodie, chipped nail polish, and a mug that read, Not my circus, not my monkeys in Comic Sans. I took the Zoom call from my kitchen, a sunbeam slicing across the counter like divine judgment. Good morning, I said like they'd invited me to brunch, not summoned me to a digital reckoning. Nathan's camera's still off. Of course. Legal jumped in mid-breath. We just need clarification on the license. If there's been a misinterpretation? There hasn't, I said, voice flat as steel. You terminated me without cause. That activated the clause. The system behaved exactly as designed. It's enforceable. I have the timestamps, the repo history, the email trail. Legal tried to smile. Halverson invested substantially and I filed copyright 5 months ago. I lifted a sheet of paper into frame like a royal flush. U.S. copyright, full code base, annotated, digitally notarized. Want the record number? Dead silence. Even the board stopped blinking. Someone exhaled like they'd been punched. Nathan unmuted. Sloan. Let's be reasonable. I looked directly into the camera, calm, precise. You told me the software replaced me. Now the software was gone quiet. And here they were, begging the ghost for help. The CFO cleared his throat. What do you want? I didn't smile. I didn't blink. You can license StratusCore back, I said. Double the original rate? Prepaid. Annual only, not perpetual. With me as consulting architect for 2 years, I retain creative control over future changes. I paused, then added, oh, and I want a public retraction of your automation launch statement. Every blog post rewritten to reflect that StratusCore was built and maintained by Nightingale Systems, LLC. My name stays on it. One board member gave a bitter laugh, gravel in his throat. God help us, he muttered. She was playing chess while we were eating glue. Another exec buried his face in his hands. You're extorting us. No, I said, tone dry as desert stone. I'm offering you the clean way out. The alternative. Keep letting your supply chain drown while I drink tea on my balcony. Legal opened her mouth, then shut it. Looked down. The CEO finally spoke. His camera was on, but the light in his eyes was out. Send the agreement. We'll have legal review. You can read it, I said, rising from my chair. But don't edit it. The terms aren't suggestions. They're the cost of underestimating the person who built the ground you're sinking through. I clicked a leave meeting before they could answer. Not in triumph, not in glee, just with the peace of someone who stopped waiting for recognition and wrote her own value into the contract. At 11:59 p.m., I opened my laptop from the terrace of a beachfront cafe, where the waves didn't care about uptime and the breeze smelled like salt citrus and closure. The contract was clean, no red lines, Just my terms word for word, clause by clause, like tiny revenge poems written in Helvetica. I scrolled to the end, paused, then signed Sloan Barrett Principal Nightingale Systems, LLC. The moment I hit send 32 Halverson servers blinked back to life like Lazarus humming on a hardwired gospel. Logging systems reinitialized, queues unfroze, monitoring dashboards exploded with data like shaken cans of soda. Orders resumed. API calls stopped timing out. Distribution centers blinked back online with a clueless relief of systems that never ask who saved them, only when. In Slack, the night shift posted a single line, "We're green across the board." Nathan Greer didn't see it. He'd submitted his resignation that afternoon quietly, without fanfare. No farewell email, no public thank you. Just a forwarded Gmail thread and a silent exit. It still wished him luck in his next chapter. Meanwhile, the onboarding packet for the new CTO sat unopened in his inbox, waiting for someone bold or dumb enough to inherit the framework I now controlled from the outside. Because buried beneath the contract, past the SLA, the non-negotiable renewals, the retraction clause, was one final line. Consulting Architect Nightingale Systems, LLC retains design authority and override access for Stratus Core for 24 months. Compensation 3x my former salary. I wasn't rehired, I was promoted, and I held the keys. Now as the sun slid into the Pacific and the cafe lights flickered on overhead, I scrolled through my feed. Halverson had posted a formal retraction. An apology, technically. They named me, blamed misinterpretation of legacy licensing, called me a visionary architect. I nearly spit out my wine. Visionary, now? Please. My phone buzzed. New email, subject infrastructure consultation, from CTO Action Star. Tio, saw what you did at Halverson. Let's talk. Full architecture rebuild. Name your rate. I leaned back in my chair. Salt air curled into my hoodie. I took a sip. Tapped out my reply. Depends who writes the license. Send. Truth is the most dangerous employee isn't the loud one. It's the one who listens documents and waits. If you've made it this far, tell me what would you have done in my place? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read them, all of them. Because stories like mine aren't just about revenge, they're about reclaiming worth. If you've ever been underestimated, written off, or quietly replaced, I hope this reminded you silence isn't surrender. Document everything. Know your value. Write your own terms. And if they ever try to bury you, just smile. Tighten the code and let the system speak. If you believe in quiet power, subscribe. We're just getting started.